If you're gonna have a heist movie with all women, I guess the only thing there is to steal is diamonds, right? Ocean's 8 stars Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett, Anne Hathaway, and a whole bunch of other people, as it is a sequel of sorts to Ocean's 11, but it's kind of its own remake too. And it's the whole female-oriented version of the series. A lot of people complain about that. I don't. I could care less about if it's all women. I think they have a right to do that since the first series was pretty much all men. The only thing I wanted to do is feel like an Ocean's 11 movie. That's all. And does it feel like it? In some regards, yes. In some regards, it lacks. Let's get into it. First up is the people category, which goes over the acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry. With acting, it's pretty much the same as the rest of the Ocean's trilogy. It's cinematically monotonous, meaning it's the same from beginning to end. Nobody really has all that much range. It's not really about that, though, so this gets 2 out of 4 possible stars. With characters, they're all memorable in the sense that they all have a different skill set that adds to the plot of the movie, just like in Ocean's 11. Not so much with Ocean's 13, a little bit here and there, but it's actually similar to Ocean's 11 in that aspect. So this gets full points, 4 out of 4 possible stars. Casting-wise, it's a great ensemble cast, lots of great people that you're going to recognize, but I don't think any of them really feel like they were born to play the role. But because it's an ensemble cast, it's part of the importance of how the movie feels as a whole, so this gets 3 out of 4 possible stars. Importance-wise, this is actually kind of impressive because the only movie in this entire universe that felt super important with the characters and their skill sets that add to the movie was Ocean's 11. Ocean's 12 was all over the place. Ocean's 13, everybody still kind of blended in together when it came down to their skill sets. Their importance in this movie and how each person adds to the general direction of the plot is as strong as Ocean's 11. So this gets full points and gets 4 out of 4 possible stars. When it comes down to the chemistry, it's not that impressive. When I'm thinking about the people who made this movie and the cast getting together to shoot these scenes, I see them shooting the scenes and I see them being done with it and not hanging out afterwards. They're there to do a job and that's it. They don't feel like they're friends. They don't feel like they're having a good time making the movie in general, which is kind of disappointing given this is a movie that should feel like you're having fun with it. So, chemistry gets 2 out of 4 possible stars. The writing category goes over the dialogue, the balance of the film, depth of the story, interesting, and how original it is. As far as dialogue is considered, with heist movies, you want the dialogue to feel smart, that it knows what it's talking about. And in this case, it's exactly what you want. 2 out of 2 possible stars. The balance of the film is pretty good. They obviously have a goal from the get-go, and they have obstacles that stop them from getting there right away. So ultimately, 2 out of 2 possible stars for balance. Depth of the story, like most heist movies and like most movies in the Ocean's franchise, it's not a deep or meaningful story. It's made for fun, and fun is what it is. But that's all I can say, 0 out of 2 possible stars. Is it original? Obviously, it takes a lot of influence from the Ocean's franchise, especially the way it starts out. But I mean, there are some things that feel fresh and new, other than the fact that they're all women this time. There's also, the heist in question is about diamonds instead of being a casino. So, I'll give it half points, 1 out of 2 possible stars. Interesting. Did it interest me to watch it, and did my interest ever die down while watching? It did interest me enough to watch it, but that's all I can say about it because the longer the movie goes on, the more I'm able to get distracted because it throws all the moving parts of the movie at you at once, so you're really, really digging what they're going after. But then it starts repeating itself almost. 1 out of 2 possible stars for this. Writing category gets 6 out of 10 possible stars. And apparently I forgot to tell you the subtotal of the people category, which was 15 out of 20 possible stars. Next up is the BTS category. It goes over the visuals, cinematography, editing, advertisement, and the music and sound. For some reason or other, Ocean's 13 was the only movie in the entire universe that looked like I wanted it to look like for the visuals. Especially when it comes down to the lighting and color spectrum, because if you look at all the posters for 11, 12, 13, and 8, it's all the same, right? It's all very red, very white, depending on which poster you're looking at. Same goes here, except the movie itself is very white balanced, so the colors are just normal. There is no color themes, there's no lighting themes. It all feels very typical. So this gets 1 out of 2 possible stars for just being typical and standard. Cinematography is pretty monotonous, especially when you're comparing it to the rest of the Ocean's movies, because even Ocean's 12 was a terrible movie, but it had good cinematography. It had good use of camera work. I can't really say that about Ocean's 8. Ocean 8, once again, standard, typical, what you would expect from any other movie. So this, 1 out of 2 possible stars. I would say, on the other hand, editing was done pretty well. When you're dealing with heist movies, you do want the editing to be snappy, and for the most part, that's exactly what you get here. It's snappy, but it's also fluid from what you would expect. So 2 out of 2 possible stars for editing. Advertisement, it was as advertised, in my opinion. Nothing false there. 2 out of 2 possible stars. As far as music and sound goes, it does have a pretty good soundtrack. It's what you would expect to see in a heist movie that makes it feel cool and fun, and that's basically what you get here as well. So this gets 2 out of 2 possible stars. So the BTS category gets 8 out of 10 possible stars. Narrative arc goes over introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action, and this is all done very well because everything got perfect points. You know, for some reason or other, this is the only Ocean's movie in the universe that I can think of that has a pretty good introduction. It takes its time getting the audience acquainted with who all these people are and how they're going to contribute to the movie before it tells you what it's ultimately about. The inciting incident is dealt with pretty well, as it's all about telling all these women what they're gonna do, how they're gonna do it, when they're gonna do it, and all the obstacles that are gonna run into along the way. It's all pretty it's all done pretty well. A little in your face, but it's okay. 2 out of 2 possible stars for that. Like I said, obviously, right in the inciting incident, they are basically telling you all the obstacles you're gonna run into, and they do run into them, so obviously the obstacles are there. 2 out of 2 possible stars. Climax, there is a big culmination of everything before it, and not the way that you would expect, especially for a heist movie, so this definitely gets full points. 2 out of 2 possible stars. Falling action, resolution, absolutely, calms down, returns to a new sense of norm, which is also kind of fresh to see from an Ocean's movie because they don't always have that. It doesn't usually calm down, but it comes to a new sense of norm, and this has both, which is nice to see. So 2 out of 2 possible stars, so this is 10 out of 10. The entertainment category goes over how rewatchable it is, how much of a good time you'll have watching, impulse to buy or own it, your impulse to talk about or recommend it, and if it sucks the audience in, and if it's engaging or riveting. Rewatchability, for the most part, I don't think it's that rewatchable. I think if you ran into it, you'd watch it again. If your friend popped it into their DVD player or Blu-ray player, that you might sit around and watch it without complaining too much. But you yourself might not seek it out. I don't think it has that much influence. It doesn't pop that much. So I would say 1 out of 2 possible stars for that. How much of a good time do you have while watching? I think there are elements in this film that are fun to watch. But it also has those boring elements where the movie starts off high and it is kind of throughout. So this gets 1 out of 2 possible stars. Do you have any impulse to buy it or own it? For me, neither. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to even put it on a wish list. As far as the Ocean's trilogy, I might put that on my wish list as a whole, but I don't even care about Ocean's 12. The only ones that I like are Ocean's 11 and 13. Take that as you will, 0 out of 2. Do you have any impulse to talk about or recommend it? I wouldn't say I would recommend this. I think there are some things in the movie that are discussion worthy, especially if you're going to be comparing it to the Ocean's trilogy before it. But other than that, not really. I'm going to give this 1 out of 2 possible stars. Is it engaging or is it riveting? Basically, when I ask this, I mean, do you have the sensation that you can pause the movie, or do you feel like you're going to miss something that's important or exciting or something to that degree? I think for the most part, there's enough moving parts in the film that make you feel like you are going to miss something if you look away. And for that reason, I will give this full points, 2 out of 2 possible stars. So the entertainment category gets 5 out of 10 possible stars. Now we look at the specialty category. What do you expect to see out of Ocean's 8? I think a lot of people are going to start comparing this to Ocean's 11 for obvious reasons, and it doesn't feel like Ocean's 11. It just doesn't, because it doesn't take place in a casino. This was a big thing to me when I first saw it. I was like, no casino, no points. Ocean's 12 had no casino. But again, that was the worst Ocean's movie. It doesn't need to have a casino, though. That's not the only thing that makes this feel like Ocean's 11, or doesn't feel like Ocean's 11. Ocean's 11, part of it was the tone and feel of being just cool and calculated. So part of that was the visuals, the color spectrum, the theme of red, the theme of white, the theme of casinos just felt really cool, like the audience was part of it. And it doesn't feel like that with Ocean's 8. There was just something about it that didn't click as far as being an Ocean's movie. So this gets half points, 5 out of 10 possible stars. For being a sequel in general, was it a movie that people were asking for, and does it add anything new? When it comes down to heist movies, you don't really expect to see sequels in general, so people aren't usually asking for them. Why? Because heist movies tell a complete story from beginning to end. You don't expect to see more of it, but it does add something new. Obviously, you got the different kind of location, you got all women, and all of this going on. So I will at least give it half points, 5 out of 10 possible stars. As a heist movie, it needs to have enough moving parts in order to feel smart, and I think for the most part, it feels very much like a heist movie that took a lot of thought into making. So I will give this full points, 10 out of 10 possible stars. As far as being halfway decent, did they make the movie that they planned to make from the get-go? For this, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, yeah. If I was gonna make the same movie, I'd probably make it exactly this way. I know I'm not completely in the target audience, but if I were, I'd probably love it to death, and I think they made the movie that they wanted to make, so I'm going to give this full points, 10 out of 10 possible stars. The specialty category gets 30 out of 40 possible stars. If we add up all those points, we get 74 out of 100 possible stars, 74% for Ocean's 8, which is a middle-of-the-road average score for movies in general with me. If we look at all the scores for the Ocean's franchise as a whole, you're looking at 90% for Ocean's 11, 85% for Ocean's 13, 74% for Ocean's 8, and 33% for Ocean's 12. Altogether, that comes up with 70% for the franchise if you're interested in that. Who knows? Guys, tell me what you thought of the franchise as a whole as well as Ocean's 8 in the comments down below. As for YouTube, you know you can subscribe to me. Hit that bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. Tell your friends about it. Until then, guys, peace out.